Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Welcome back.
So, we're going to be talking about Mars in Vedic Astrology. So, would you set us off on our journey to get to know Mars?
Mars is super important in our charts. Mars is our drive. Mars gives us our edge. Mars gives us our courage. Mars gives us our desire to conquer and win. So, Mars is very important.
Interesting. And like when we look at the depiction of Mars, from a Vedic astrology standpoint, it's definitely that warrior. Interesting. Whether we're talking east or west, we see it associated with the ram, and you think Mars, you think god of war, Aries, god of war.
Right. So just really quick example, if you have Mars, say, sitting in your first house, this is a really good aspect for athletes because it gives us that drive and that competitive edge with our whole persona, our whole body. Or maybe if you have Mars sitting in the seventh house of relationships and partnerships, it really gives you an edge to do business with people.
Interesting. Yeah. So Mars can give us that energy that we need to not only protect ourselves or defend ourselves or to allow ourselves to be walked over, but to actually give us that oomph, that push, that fire, that spirit, that energy.
Right. So, I don't look at Mars just as the god of war so much anymore since I've been learning this. Mars is, I keep saying like every planet's my favorite planet, but every time I talk about one, I just start to fall in love with it. But Mars has so many things about it that can really help make the quality of our lives much better.
Yeah, well, Mars, we had talked about Venus, and Venus, feminine. Boom. Just Venus is like goddess, it's feminine. Soft, it's loving. And Mars, we just automatically think it's masculine, it's strong and powerful. It's like your army commander. And then you could also think of it in terms of, its temperament, violent perhaps, angry perhaps, rash perhaps.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's sitting in a bad aspect or if it's sitting with someone he doesn't like, he can bring a temper.
Interesting. And definitely, if you were to give it an element, it would be fire. Wouldn't you agree?
Most definitely.
It's definitely fire. It's so fascinating when we look at a person's chart because then you could see why they're the way they are. Their natural tendencies, because this is all going to be natural tendencies that are built into us. Doesn't mean we can't change over time, because we can.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's things in there that can be overcome. And so many times when I do someone's chart, something might come up where it says, okay, so if a person has this aspect in their chart and they are made aware of it, it's almost like breaking a spell. It's almost like that energy. It's like letting air out of the balloon. It's like all of a sudden, oh, okay, that's why I do that. And that's okay. And that happens time and time again.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to touch on was like you usually start when you're doing a reading with the ascendant and the nakshatra. But, when you go and you look at everything, because again, there's many different aspects to a chart. And one of the things I want to touch on again is the fact that like in Vedic astrology, it takes into account the tilt of the earth because the earth is tilted. It's roughly 23.5 degrees. Now, it does vary. It goes actually from like 21 to 24 as we roll through the precession of the equinoxes, which again takes 26,000 years roughly. And then that's just another whole interesting, story in and of itself because we see these massive cataclysms that seem to come at about 12,000 or about halfway through the precession. Now, Western astrology doesn't take this into account. And, Western astrology we could date it back to the time of Alexander, so about 2,300 years ago, and the line of thinking with Vedic is it's thousands and thousands of years older.
Right. Vedic is a lot older, and although it's not complete, we do have more pieces to the puzzle when it comes to Vedic astrology.
Now, you say it's not complete because they only recognize the influences they could see with the naked eye. So they didn't take Pluto into account, or Uranus or Neptune.
Right. Not only that, but even the study about it, like all the writings that the sages did, it's an incomplete book, but we have a lot more information in Vedic astrology than we have in the book of Western astrology.
Well, yeah, and things like Rahu and Ketu are so important, and the ascendant and your moon sign are actually of more importance than your sun sign. They're given more weight, we should say. And so, the nakshatra is kind of like isolating down the ascendant into a particular star that was on the horizon at the time of your birth. So one of the things I wanted to get across was, as we start doing a chart, it's interesting because some things, like with the ascendant and the nakshatra, they might hit home amazingly well. They usually do. Sometimes they might not hit home so well because when you look at something else later on, there might be a balancing force. So, like having Mars at a certain placement can affect, your ascendant as well, and your natural tendencies. You have to look at the whole. And it's fascinating. I love listening to you do the sessions because people are usually completely blown away.
Oh, they have a lot of fun, and sometimes it's the littlest of details too that I put in there, and I'm like, I don't know about this, but I'm going to throw it in there anyway. And then even as I'm doing the chart, I'm like, gosh, should I mention this? And I mention it, and it's just such a small but hilarious detail about this person and their life. It just kind of makes everything.
So when you look at a Vedic chart, this is the first house, and then it goes counterclockwise: second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And we'll be going over each of the houses in turn as we go deeper and deeper into this. So when we look at Mars is the power within us to defend ourselves in an urgent situation, but it's a lot more than that too.
Oh my gosh, it's so much more than that, because as you put it in each house, and depending on the influence of that house and then the personality of Mars, it changes from house to house to house. Like if you have Mars, say, in the eighth house, these make really good emergency surgeons, emergency room drivers, people who actually have to get in there and deal with the mud and the blood and the yuck of things. But it's a very important to have that placement in your chart if you are going to be an emergency room doctor or a surgeon.
So Mars rules the astrological zodiacal signs of Aries and Scorpio. So what would something that would be advantageous with that look like?
Okay, so I guess if you were to have Mars in your first house sitting with Aries, this would put someone, I would say they would be probably a gold medalist, Olympic winner.
Very, very cool. And so how about some planets or placements where it wouldn't necessarily be so advantageous?
I think sometimes if you look at Mars in the sixth house, depending on where it's at and its timeline, if it's young or if it's older, I think in the sixth house with debts and diseases, it might create problems there. It might give someone more diseases, or possible problems with more diseases that might give someone a bit of a temper.
Interesting. Yeah. And so again, we view this as it's like a snapshot of all the energies around us as we're being birthed into this world. And the spirit, the soul, chooses, the most opportune time to come in order to learn the things it needs to learn.
Right. I know Joffrey, one of our brothers, he called it a star map one time. And that really struck me as like, how true is that? Because if you have your time of birth and you can get your star map, you can map out your entire life and do so much with that information. It's no wonder why they keep this stuff pretty quiet.
It is. So there's three gunas, and I've touched on that before. They're kind of like viewed as qualities, and so Mars is tamas, and that's basically like stability. Could also kind of view it as solid and heavy as far as that goes. And obviously, its caste is the warrior caste, and its nature is malefic. It's considered malefic, but so is Rahu.
Right. Well, it depends on how you use that malefic. It's to say somebody having Mars in the seventh house might make a really good divorce attorney. So,
True, it's all relative, and it's all, I guess, to what it's in conjunction with.
yeah.
So Mars is the enemy, as they say in astrology, like an enemy sign, a sign that it doesn't get along with, is Mercury. That's curious. Now that's communications primarily.
Right. It could maybe make someone hot-headed when they're trying to communicate.
Oh, okay. I could see that. And its friends are the Sun, the Moon, and Jupiter.
Right, because the sun always brightens the qualities of whoever it sits with, and the sun is like the general, and Mars is like the soldier. So Mars likes to take orders from the general and do what he says. So these planets, and also when it comes to Jupiter, Jupiter is also a teacher. Mars can be like a teacher and a counselor as well.
Interesting. And so Mars is exalted in Capricorn.
It is exalted in Capricorn, and I think that what that does is give somebody a strong ability to, possibly be in a place of government or governing.
Now, my ascendant is Capricorn.
Right, you got a Capricorn, and you do have that ability to govern big things.
Well, thank you. Yeah, actually, I've always kind of been in management when I was in the corporate world. It just always seemed to happen.
Yep, you got it.
So very interesting. Now it's debilitated in Cancer. In Cancer, we always think of emotional and family.
Right, so if Mars is sitting with Cancer, it might just be like, oh gosh, you're going to get all emotional again. It might just be sitting there kind of uncomfortable, because you got to look at it like literally when it's sitting with someone, and you got to look at these attributes and just sort of imagine these personalities, what they might say if they were sitting together.
Interesting. So the nakshatras governed by Mars are Mrigashira, right? Mm-hmm. Chitra and Anishta.
Yes, those are some really good, beautiful nakshatras. Yours is Dhanishta. And one of the ones that I found most unique about that one is this is someone who beats to the rhythm of their own drum. They do not follow others. They find their own way, very unique and different beings.
And that's so true. It's just so true. It's like in school, when I was interested in something, it was, all A's, piece of cake. But if I didn't care, I just didn't care. And I also would question everything, always question everything. And I think it's like an inherent characteristic of my personality to question everything.
Right. And, part of that also is, like you called it yesterday, is system busters. Yes. So these beings, and that's one of your jobs, is to come down here and break the taboos of, what we might call our social network or our social acceptability. You come down here and you take things that are not socially acceptable normally and put them out there and say, hey, look at this. And maybe it's the right way to do things. Maybe we do need to look at things differently.
Well, that's why in the corporate world I never got to the top, because I would just start seeing the things that were wrong, and instead of just trying to toe the corporate line, I would just point them out that this is not right, that's not right. Where's the humanity in this? I understand you want profits, but that didn't go over so well. So I'd always be at a certain spot and not go up higher, because I just wouldn't keep my mouth shut when it came to the stuff I saw.
Right. Well, when you saw something is wrong, and if there's a better way to do things, you pointed that out. And the powers that be don't like that, because they like things to go in a certain steady, even flow. And that's probably why you will never, ever, ever be in the corporate world again. You will always be out there changing stuff, arranging stuff, saying, hey, let's look at this way and not that way, maybe.
Yeah, it's been, I guess about 7 years or so. Although entirely out of it. I started to step out of it back in 2009, and have mostly been out of the corporate world, besides like one brief period since then. And it just got to the point where physically, it felt like body blows, like taking a spinning back kick to the gut, to be in the corporate world and to see how it doesn't care about humans at all. Not at all. It's just about money, control, profit, and people don't matter.
Right. Our whole system is set up to benefit other people. It's not set up to benefit us as individual humans.
So very interesting. Anything else you wanted to add about Mars as far as from an astrological point of view?
Just I really enjoy when I see Mars giving someone a certain edge in something, and then we find that in the chart, and they're like, yep, nailed it.
So with me, like in my chart, Mars is where?
Your Mars is in the 9th house. It does give you the ability to be speaker, teacher, guru, a lot of abilities to understand and also teach things of higher learning, occult knowledge. And it gives you just that ability and the edge and the drive to do it.
Well, thanks for sharing. So, guys, as always, make sure you are still subscribed, have the bell clicked. Hopefully, you'll get a notification or two.
Yep.
Thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Anybody that wants to set up for an astrological chart, it is about a 2-week wait still, I think, before she could have it done and get an appointment scheduled. But we'd love to help you, and reach out to us at EEARTS at ProtonMail or evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com. As always, God bless and namaste. And Sin, would you do the honors? We're going to send a beautiful wave of pure, clear, crystalline healing energy out your way. As always, guys, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.